The smell of fried eggs, burnt toast, and cheap coffee filled the little diner on the corner of Maple Street. It was a place where truck drivers stopped, college kids came in late at night, and locals passed through for their morning fix. Among the waitresses bustling between tables was Amara, a young woman in her mid-20s. She had warm brown skin, tired eyes that hinted at sleepless nights, and curly black hair tied into a messy bun. Her smile, though often forced for customers, carried a softness that made her stand out. Life had not been kind to Amara. She worked double shifts, barely earning enough to cover her rent and send a little money home to her sick mother. But despite the exhaustion, she had one thing no one could take away: her kindness. Every evening, just as the sun dipped behind the city skyline, a man would appear near the back alley of the diner. He wore tattered clothes, shoes falling apart, and his long beard was streaked with gray. His name was Jacob, though most people never cared enough to ask. To everyone else, he was just that homeless guy. Other waitresses avoided him, whispering about how he probably smelled or carried diseases. Some customers complained when he lingered too close. But Amara, she noticed something different. The first time she saw him, he wasn't begging. He wasn't asking for food or money. He was just sitting quietly, watching the steam rise from the diner windows, as if the warmth inside was enough to feed him. Amara felt a pang in her chest. After her shift, instead of throwing away the leftovers, she packed a plate, eggs, bacon, a biscuit, and walked outside. "Here," she said softly. Jacob looked up, his pale blue eyes piercing yet tired. For a moment, he hesitated, as if unsure whether to take it. "It's okay," Amara assured, placing the plate next to him. "It's fresh. You need it more than the trash can does." He whispered, almost too low to hear, "Thank you." That night started a routine. Every day after her shift, Amara would sneak him a plate of food. Sometimes it was pancakes, sometimes burgers, sometimes just bread and soup. And every night, Jacob would nod in gratitude, saying very little, but his eyes softened a little more each time. "Why do you waste your time on him?" asked Brenda, another waitress with bright red lipstick and little patience. "He's just another drunk. Probably made bad choices. Not your responsibility." But Amara shook her head. "We don't know his story. Everyone deserves to eat." Even the diner's manager warned her, "Be careful. You don't know these people. One day he might rob you." But deep inside, Amara felt something different. Jacob never asked, never demanded. He only accepted quietly, almost with shame, as if he felt unworthy. One rainy night, Amara found him drenched, shivering under a cardboard sheet. Without hesitation, she gave him her spare coat. "You'll get sick," she said, wrapping it around his shoulders. Jacob looked at her for a long time. His voice cracked when he finally spoke. "Why are you so kind to me?" Amara smiled sadly. "Because once, my mother and I were hungry too. If someone had helped us back then, maybe things would have been different. I don't want you to feel invisible." For the first time, Jacob's lips curved into the smallest smile. Amara continued her quiet act of kindness, despite the whispers, the judgments, and the looks. She never asked Jacob about his past. She never cared why he was on the streets. To her, he was simply human, deserving of dignity. But sometimes she wondered. His posture wasn't like the other homeless men she had seen. His speech was careful, polite. His hands, though calloused, carried a strange refinement, as if they hadn't always lived in dirt. And those eyes, piercing blue, sharp, and almost watchful, didn't seem broken. Still, she pushed away her curiosity. Whoever he was, it didn't matter. Until one day it did. It was a bright Saturday morning when a group of rowdy teenagers came into the diner. They laughed loudly, tossed fries at each other, and caused trouble. When Jacob walked by the window, their laughter turned cruel. "Look at that bum," one sneered. "Bet he hasn't showered in months." They threw scraps of food at the glass, mocking him. The diner erupted in snickers. Amara froze. She felt her chest tighten with rage. Slamming her tray down, she marched outside. "Stop it," she shouted, her voice trembling with anger. The teens scoffed and walked off, but not before one muttered, "Crazy waitress defending trash." Amara turned to Jacob. He stood still, silent, his jaw tight, but his eyes burned with something she hadn't seen before. Not shame, not sadness, something deeper. "Don't listen to them," she said softly, placing a hand on his arm. "You're not trash." Jacob looked at her for a long time, then said something he had never said before. "You'll understand soon enough." Amara frowned. Understand what? But Jacob only gave her that piercing look, then walked away. That night, as she lay in bed, Amara couldn't shake his words. Something about him was different, something he was hiding, and she was about to find out. The next morning at the diner, Amara's mind was restless. She kept replaying Jacob's words. "You'll understand soon enough." It wasn't the kind of thing a man with nothing would say. It felt like a promise, a secret waiting to unfold. As usual, Jacob appeared near the back alley in the evening. Amara carried out a plate of steaming soup and bread. This time, she didn't just hand it to him and walk away. Instead, she sat down on the crate across from him. "You know," she said, breaking the silence, "you're a very mysterious man." Jacob lifted his head slowly. His pale blue eyes met hers, and for a moment, Amara felt as though he could see right through her. "Mysterious?" he repeated, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "Yes," Amara said, folding her arms. "Most men in your situation beg, complain, or get angry at the world. But you sit here quietly. You speak like someone who's educated. And sometimes, the way you look at things, like you've already lived 100 lives." Jacob's smile faded, replaced by something more guarded. "Maybe I have," he murmured. "Then tell me." Amara pressed gently. "Who are you really?" For a long time, he said nothing. The only sounds were the distant honk of cars and the clatter of dishes from inside the diner. Finally, Jacob whispered, "Not who I used to be." Amara frowned. "That's not an answer." Jacob stirred the soup absent-mindedly, as though lost in thought. "Once, I had everything. More money than I could ever spend. More power than I deserved. But fate is cruel. Life has a way of teaching you what truly matters." Amara's heart skipped. Money? Power? He didn't sound like a man who had lived on the streets forever. "You were rich?" she asked cautiously. Jacob's lips curved in a bitter smile. "Rich enough to buy anything, except happiness. But wealth is a fragile crown. When storms come, it falls apart faster than you think." He didn't elaborate, and Amara didn't push further. Instead, she listened, sensing that behind his ragged beard and worn clothes was a story too big to rush. Over the following weeks, Jacob spoke more than he ever had before. Not everything. Never names, never places. But pieces. He talked about walking through glass towers that reached the sky. About cars so expensive they could buy a house. About parties where champagne flowed like water, but the laughter was empty. "I lived in a world," Jacob said one night, "where people smiled at you only if your pockets were full. The moment you lost a cent, they vanished like smoke." Amara leaned closer, fascinated. "And that's what happened to you. You lost it all." Jacob chuckled, a dry, almost painful sound. "Lost, betrayed, stripped. Call it whatever you like. One day, I was on top of the world. The next, I was nothing. And I realized something. When you fall, the ones who claim to love you don't even bother to look down." Amara's chest ached. She thought of her own struggles, friends who left when she couldn't keep up, relatives who judged her for being poor. She understood more than she expected. "I'm sorry," she said softly. "That must have been hard." Jacob looked at her, truly looked at her. "Hard, yes, but necessary. If I hadn't lost everything, I would never have learned what kindness really looks like. I would never have met someone like you." Amara's cheeks warmed. She quickly looked away, pretending to adjust the empty plate. But not everyone was as forgiving. Brenda, the other waitress, noticed Amara slipping outside more often. One evening, she cornered her in the kitchen. "Amara, listen," she said sharply. "That man is trouble. Don't you think it's strange? He talks like he's some fallen prince. Probably a scammer. What if he's dangerous?" Amara shook her head. "He's not dangerous. He's just broken. People can fall, Brenda. That doesn't make them evil. Brenda snorted. You're too soft. Mark my words, one day you'll regret this. But Amara couldn't shake the feeling that Brenda was wrong. Jacob wasn't dangerous. He was hiding. One cold night, Amara found Jacob coughing badly, his body shivering. Without a second thought, she helped him inside the diner, seating him at a corner booth after hours. You'll freeze to death out there, she scolded. At least warm up. Jacob looked uneasy, glancing around as if afraid someone would see him. Why are you so afraid? Amara asked gently. He hesitated. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, he said, Because if the wrong people recognize me, everything changes. Amara blinked. Recognize him. Jacob leaned back, his gaze drifting toward the diner lights. You want the truth, Amara? I wasn't just rich. I wasn't just powerful. I was untouchable. Or so I thought. People bowed when I entered the room. My name was printed in headlines. My face plastered on magazine covers. Amara's heart raced. She could hardly breathe. Magazine covers? Headlines. Who was this man sitting across from her in torn shoes and a worn-out coat? But one mistake, Jacob continued, his voice bitter. One betrayal, and the empire crumbled. I trusted the wrong people, and when they stabbed me in the back, the world cheered as I fell. In a single week, I went from billionaire to beggar. Silence fell heavy between them. Amara's mouth went dry. Billionaire. He had said billionaire. She searched his face, trying to picture the man he once was beneath the dirt and weariness. And suddenly, she could see it. The sharp jawline, the commanding eyes, the way he spoke with quiet authority. He wasn't lying. You were really... She couldn't finish the sentence. Jacob gave a tired smile. I was. Not anymore. To the world, I'm forgotten. And I prefer it that way. But Amara couldn't stop thinking about it. The pieces made sense now. The way he carried himself, the way he never begged, the look in his eyes when people mocked him. He wasn't just a homeless man. He was someone who had ruled the world of money and lost it all. And though he tried to hide it, she knew one thing for certain. Jacob's story was far from over. The night Jacob confessed his fall from grace, Amara lay awake in her tiny apartment, staring at the cracked ceiling. A billionaire? The word echoed in her mind like thunder. She replayed his words again and again. One betrayal, and the empire crumbled. Who was he really? And why was he hiding here, in her small corner of the world? The following days felt heavier. Amara still served Jacob meals, but her heart raced each time she saw him. She wanted to ask questions about his company, his downfall, his real name, but fear held her back. What if pressing too hard scared him away? But fate didn't wait for her. One evening, just as she stepped outside with Jacob's plate, a sleek black car pulled up near the alley. Two men in dark suits got out. They scanned the street with sharp eyes, then walked straight toward Jacob. Amara froze. Jacob's body stiffened as if he had seen ghosts. His hand trembled on the wooden crate. Sir, one of the men said firmly, we've been searching for you for months. Amara's jaw dropped. Sir, Jacob's face darkened. I told you to leave me alone. Your board is in chaos, the man continued. The company, it's collapsing without you. Investors are panicking. We need you back before everything is lost. Company. Investors. Amara's breath hitched. They weren't lying. Jacob stood slowly, his shabby coat fluttering in the night breeze. For the first time, Amara saw not a homeless man, but a figure of power, his posture straight, his gaze commanding. You still don't get it, do you? Jacob's voice was sharp now, dripping with the authority of a man used to being obeyed. I don't want it back. I walked away for a reason. The men exchanged uneasy glances. But sir, you're still legally the owner. The empire you built, it's waiting for you. You're the only one who can save it. Amara's heart pounded. Empire, owner, billionaire. Every suspicion she had was true. Jacob was no ordinary man. The men left reluctantly, their black car disappearing into the city's glow. The alley fell silent again. Amara finally found her voice. Jacob, why didn't you tell me? He turned to her, his eyes softer now. Because when people know who I am, they stop seeing me as a man. They see a bank account, power, a walking fortune. But you, his voice caught, you saw me when I was nothing. You fed me, cared for me, listened to me. Not the billionaire, but the broken man. Amara's eyes stung. She didn't know whether to cry or smile. So what now? She whispered. Jacob stepped closer, his voice low but certain. Now I stop running, but I don't go back alone. His gaze lingered on her. Amara's breath caught. Did he mean? The next week, the story spread like wildfire. Headlines filled the news. Disgraced billionaire reappears after vanishing. Fallen tycoon returns with mysterious woman at his side. Cameras flashed as Jacob, clean-shaven, dressed in a sharp black suit, stepped out of a luxury car. But his hand never let go of Amara's. For her, the world had flipped upside down. One week, she was a poor waitress serving coffee in a cheap diner. The next, she was walking beside a man the world once worshipped and now couldn't stop talking about. Yet, through all the chaos, Jacob never changed toward her. I don't care about their headlines, he told her one night as they sat on the balcony of a high-rise overlooking the glittering city. I only care about you. You were there when I had nothing. That's the only truth I need. Amara smiled faintly, her heart swelling. But Jacob, what if they don't accept me? I'm just a waitress. Jacob cupped her face gently. You're not just anything. You're the only real person I've met in years. But the world wasn't kind. At a charity gala, whispers followed Amara like shadows. Rich women in glittering gowns sneered at her plain dress. Men smirked, calling her the charity case he brought in. Amara's cheeks burned, but Jacob's grip on her hand tightened. In front of everyone, he pulled her closer and declared, This woman saved me when I was at my lowest. And if anyone here has a problem with her, then you have a problem with me. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Cameras flashed wildly. For the first time, Amara felt the weight of his love, not as a billionaire, but as a man who had chosen her above all. In the months that followed, Jacob slowly rebuilt his empire, but this time with different eyes. He cut ties with greedy investors, refused deals that smelled of corruption, and poured money into shelters and diners, just like the one where Amara had worked. I lost everything once, he said. I won't waste my second chance. And true to his word, he never forgot the streets he came from, or the woman who fed him when he was invisible. Amara, once mocked as a poor waitress, now stood proudly as his partner, not because of his money, but because together they had survived the storm of betrayal, loss, and humiliation. One quiet evening, as they sat on the same diner steps where their story began, Amara leaned her head on his shoulder. Do you ever regret it? She asked softly. Losing everything. Jacob smiled, his eyes reflecting the neon glow of the city. If I hadn't lost it all, I never would have found you. Amara's heart fluttered, and in that moment, she realized, sometimes fate destroys everything you think matters, just to give you the one thing that truly does.